Once upon a time in the serene village of Umuika, there lived a cheerful, kind-hearted woman named Oyiri. She was a humble food seller, known far and wide for her humility, truthfulness, and respect for everyone she encountered. Oyiri ran her small food business in a bustling corner of the village market. Unlike many in her trade, she avoided gossip and strife, dedicating herself wholly to her family and work. Though she lived and worked in the heart of Umuike, Oyiri was not a native of the land. She was a stranger who had followed her husband, Herbert Eze, as his job as a security officer required frequent relocations. Herbert was a retired policeman who had served his country tirelessly and with unwavering integrity. Throughout his career, he was known as a man who could not be swayed by money or corruption. A devoted husband to his loving wife and a doting father to his beautiful daughter, Herbert valued family above all else. After retiring, he sought a way to continue supporting his family and took on the role of a security officer at the prestigious gated community of Umueze. In his new role, Herbert's steadfast principles and dedication to the safety and well-being of the residents became evident. His reputation as a man of honor and loyalty quickly earned him the trust and respect of the community he served. With every passing day, Herbert approached his work with the same integrity and diligence that had defined his years on the force, becoming an indispensable guardian of the community's peace. Despite being outsiders, the couple maintained peace with everyone, striving to live harmoniously in their adopted home. One day, Herbert found himself in a conflict at work. A group of locals involved in corrupt dealings had clashed with his sense of duty and integrity. These men saw Herbert as a barrier to their illegal activities and plotted to have him removed. When their attempts to frame him failed, one man in particular, Mr. Oti, vowed revenge. Unable to break Herbert's resolve, Oti hatched a sinister plan to hurt Herbert by targeting his beloved wife, Oyiri. Unknown to Oyiri, a killer had been hired to end her life. On a seemingly ordinary day, the assassin entered her restaurant, blending in with the crowd of customers. He appeared harmless, even ordinary. When a waitress approached him, he ordered a plate of pounded yam, a goosey soup with assorted meat, and a chilled beer. After finishing his meal, he calmly declared that he had no money but promised to pay the next day. The report reached Oyiri, who, true to her compassionate nature, smiled and assured the man it was fine. "Come tomorrow and pay," she said kindly. What she didn't know was that this man had no intention of paying or even leaving her alive. He had come to find justification for his act, some flaw or outburst from her that could soothe his guilty conscience. The next day, the man returned, once again ordering the most sumptuous meal, and again when it was time to pay, he claimed he had no money. The waitress, now visibly annoyed, wanted to confront him, but Oyiri intervened. "Leave him," she said gently, her eyes filled with understanding. "If he says he will pay tomorrow, let us trust him." The assassin studied her carefully. Her kindness and composure were disarming, unlike anything he had expected. After a long day at her restaurant, Oyiri returned home, her ever-cheerful demeanor lighting up the room. After showering, she casually shared the day's events with her husband, Herbert, privately in their room. "There was this man at the restaurant today," Oyiri began with a smile. "He ate a full meal but said he didn't have money to pay. Twice now, he's promised to pay the next day." Herbert frowned, his fork pausing mid-air. "What? And you let him go?" "Yes, my husband," she replied. "He seemed hungry. What else could I do? He will pay when he can." Herbert shook his head in frustration. "But this is not right, Oyiri. Don't you see? The man is taking you for granted." "I don't know about that," Oyiri said calmly, her voice tinged with compassion. "All I know is that he is hungry and needs to be fed." "Well," Herbert replied sternly, "if you keep sharing your food with anyone who claims to have no money, very soon your business will collapse." Oyiri nodded gently, not wanting to argue. "Perhaps," she said, but I don't see any harm in helping. Herbert sighed deeply, his concern for her well-being evident. Just be careful, my wife, he warned. Early the next morning, while her family slept, Oyiri rose quietly. With the help of her maid and her older daughter, she prepared the day's menu. By the time the sun was fully up, she was ready to leave for work. Herbert, as usual, had delivered the bulk of the food to the restaurant earlier. As customers began trickling into the restaurant, Oyiri's ever-smiling presence brought warmth to the atmosphere. The man from the previous days included. The waitress, who had grown increasingly annoyed by his audacity, spotted him and immediately began to fume. He's here again, she muttered under her breath, loud enough for Oyiri to hear. Oyiri, noticing the rising tension, approached the waitress. It has not come to this, my dear, she said softly. We are here to serve, even the less privileged. Let's not lose our patience. To avoid further friction, Oyiri decided to serve the man herself. This time, the man made an extravagant request, a rare soup recipe, assorted meat, smoked guinea fowl, and chilled palm wine. The order was far more costly than his previous ones. Without hesitation, Oyiri took the order and served him personally, placing each item in front of him with a kind smile. Throughout the meal, the man's gaze never left her. His eyes seemed to search her face for a reason to justify his actions, but all he saw was genuine kindness. After eating hastily, the man signaled for Oyiri to come closer. Yes, sir, Oyiri said, her tone polite as ever. She pulled up a chair and sat across from him, her hands resting calmly on her lap. The man hesitated, his fingers tapping nervously on the edge of the table. He cleared his throat and began, his voice low and trembling. Madam, he said, avoiding her gaze, do you know why I'm here? Oyiri tilted her head slightly, puzzled. To eat, of course, she replied with a gentle smile, though a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. The man shook his head. That's not why I'm here. Her smile faltered slightly, and her brows knitted in concern. Then why are you here? She asked, her voice steady despite the unease growing inside her. The man leaned forward, lowering his voice to a whisper. I was sent here to kill you. Shock swept over Oyiri as she sat frozen, her composure briefly shattered. To kill me? She repeated, her voice barely audible. Yes, the man continued, his tone trembling with guilt. I wasn't coming here just to eat. I was coming to provoke you to anger, to make you lose your temper, so I could find a justified reason to take your life. He paused, studying her reaction as her face turned pale. I was hired by a man, someone who had an issue with your husband in the past. Your husband, Herbert, believed everything had been resolved, but he didn't know that his enemy had been waiting for a moment to strike. Oyiri's hands trembled slightly, but she clasped them tightly in her lap, trying to maintain her composure. The man continued, his voice thick with emotion. What kind of woman are you, Oyiri? How could you endure all that I've done to you? Right from the first day I had money with me. I wasn't here because I was hungry. I was looking for an excuse, any occasion, to carry out my assignment. Tears welled in Oyiri's eyes, but she remained silent. What type of woman, the man pressed, would allow a stranger to eat the kind of expensive meals I've ordered and leave without paying? Your kindness, Madame Oyiri, has saved you. I was waiting for you to lash out, to say something harsh, but you never did. One angry word from you, and your life would have been over. As the man paid in full all that he owed, and more and left, Oyiri stood motionless for a moment before retreating to the kitchen, her legs trembling. She leaned against the counter, shaking uncontrollably as tears streamed down her cheeks. Her daughter and the waitress, noticing her distress, quickly surrounded her. Mama, what's wrong? Her daughter asked, concern evident in her voice. The waitress added, Madam, are you all right? Please, talk to us. Oyiri shook her head, unable to speak. She reached out and hugged them both tightly, silently grateful for their presence. The rest of the day's business came to an abrupt end. Oyiri decided to share the remaining food with people in the community, as she often did. Then, hastily closing the shop, she returned home, still trembling from the ordeal. When she finally told Herbert what had happened, his reaction was a mixture of rage, fear, and gratitude. "I nearly ruined it," Herbert lamented, his voice heavy with emotion. "How could I have known? Your life was at stake, Oyiri. I thought he was just another freeloader, but—" He trailed off, burying his face in his hands. "I'm fine," Oyiri said gently, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "It's in the past now." Herbert looked up at her, his eyes brimming with tears. "Your kindness saved your life, Oyiri. I am so proud of you, but I'm also terrified of what could have happened." She smiled faintly, pulling him into a tight hug. "We're safe now, my love. That's all that matters." And so their bond grew even stronger, a testament to the power of compassion and unwavering kindness in the face of danger. Be kind, as you never know the battles others are facing or the profound impact your kindness can have. Choose your words wisely, speaking with thoughtfulness and care, as words hold the power to build or destroy. Strive for virtue, for good character is a priceless asset that builds bridges, inspires trust, and can save you in unexpected ways. Learn and grow from every experience, embracing goodness to guide your actions in every circumstance. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, share with your loved ones, and stay tuned for more captivating stories. The end.